Do European banks, or actually does Europe have a money laundering problem?
Well, there are certainly quite a lot of interesting episodes which point to a problem, though I would say that many of these are somewhat dated. They are quite old, and there has been a major effort over the last few years to strengthen financial controls. I mean, there's a huge investment going on in my bank, and I'm sure we're not alone, in improving ability to onboard clients, to make the financial crime checks, the know your customer checks, etc. There's a huge investment going on in that. So it's interesting that a lot of the cases that we're seeing, the most well-publicized ones, date from about 10 years ago, when perhaps the controls were not as good as they are today. So I think we've done a huge amount of re-engineering of the system, but it looks like there are still some legacy issues that are still going to cause some reputational damage for some European banks. And
Sir Howard, for your bank, so we heard from RBS that you're looking into allegations of money laundering. Can you tell us any more?
The allegation that we discovered only yesterday, so my state of knowledge of this is not hugely deep, was that some of the money connected to this, some of this Russian money, let's just call it that, went through an ABN AMRO entity, which we acquired in 2008, and a business which has been closed down subsequently. That makes it quite difficult to know whether this was before we bought it or after we bought it, who's responsible for it. I'm afraid we're going to have to work on that.
Okay, but do regulators need to work closely together in Europe? Do we have these concerns because actually there's a regulator for this country and this one, and we don't have an overall, view for this?
I think a lesson that people are drawing, certainly in the EU, and that's not perhaps relevant to us on our way out, is that some more centralised anti-money laundering controls and standardised systems probably makes sense in the Eurozone. If you ask me, I suspect within 3 or 4 years there will be a Eurozone anti-money laundering regulator. At the moment, there's something called the Financial Action Task Force, which slightly curiously perhaps is based at the OECD, which is the only bit of financial regulation that sits within the OECD rather than rather than BIS in Basel or the ECB or whatever. I wonder if people aren't going to look at that.